Hey everyone out there, how's it going? Welcome back to Screen Speak. It's the podcast that's all about movies, life, and so much more. I'm Jordan Anderson, this is my podcast, and I want to sincerely thank you, as always, the listener, for coming by and giving this a listen. If you haven't done this, because assuming you could be a first-time listener at this point, I don't know. If you haven't done this, please go ahead and do so. Hit the follow button, that's the first thing. Number 2, hit the bell, which is usually located right by the follow button. That way you don't miss out on any episodes, and you simultaneously help support the growth of the podcast. And the last thing is if you're into social media, check out the podcast on its Instagram page, which is just at ScreenSpeak Podcast, or you can also alternatively check out the Facebook community group, which is just titled ScreenSpeak. You can do that, you can do Instagram, or you could do neither. It doesn't really matter, except it kind of does. It all goes towards supporting the podcast. So please go ahead and do that if you haven't done so. All you existing listeners out there that continue to do that, thank you so much for doing that. It really does mean a lot to me and this podcast. Okay, plugs are over. Let's get into the actual episode. I have a guest on this episode. It is a person that I've had on before. It's Mr. Kyler Avery. Kyler's a friend of mine, and he's also a fan of Avatar. He came on a while ago to talk about the first Avatar with me, and admittedly so, he was a little nervous. He says that in the podcast. I'm not breaching any trust by saying that. He was a little nervous. He'd never done a podcast before, but I think he ultimately enjoyed himself, and he enjoyed talking about Avatar. So I told him at the end of that episode if he wanted to come back for another podcast, we should just talk about the new Avatar movie, because I don't want to do that episode solo. He's a big fan of the movie, of the franchise. It's turning into a franchise at this point. So he wanted to come back and talk about it, and I was all too happy to have him back on. So we get into all things Avatar 2. Now, I'll make this clear before I let the conversation itself play out. Full spoilers, okay? Avatar is a huge movie. Avatar: The Way of Water is a big movie. I'm going to assume if you're listening at this point that you've probably seen it. So if you haven't seen Avatar: The Way of Water, do not listen to this episode. Just shut it off, go watch it, and then you can come back here and listen to our thoughts on the movie Avatar. But overall, I thought it was a good conversation. It was nice to see him be a bit more loose and relaxed for this one, which is nice. You never know when you have somebody that hasn't done a podcast before. They're sometimes really nervous. This is sometimes their bag, so they just go into it with full confidence. I've really had a mix of both since doing ScreenSpeak, so always interesting to see how that unfolds, but it's great when it unfolds like how it does in this episode. So without any further introduction or rambling or delay, this is my conversation on Avatar: The Way of Water with my friend, Mr. Kyler Avery. Yeah, we're live. Well, it's actually not live. This was just, none of this is live. This
you know
is,
what I meant.
Pre-recorded programming. That's what I'm trying to say. Welcome back to the podcast, buddy.
Glad to be back.
I did not buy that for a second. You're just like, oh no, this is only my second time doing this. Like, what are you doing to me?
Yeah.
No, but welcome back. This was actually hard for me to wait this long to talk about this with you, because I wanted to talk about it sooner, but I was like, no. I'm like, we did the first Avatar together. I gotta wait till you see it.
I hate going to the movie theater and it's packed. Like,
yeah,
we saw it right. I've seen it 3 times now, and we just went right before this, and the theater was packed, and I hated it. Like, there's people, they had crinkly bags of crap.
You hear that one person behind us that, like, I swear to God, it was like a 10
they
minute
were
straight.
They were wrapping gifts behind us, I think.
Are you serious?
No.
I mean, I was going to say, it's like Christmas is past.
I looked, and it was just, I think they had brought, like, brown paper bags.
Yeah.
And, like, put popcorn in them for their kids or whatever.
Okay, because, like,
but it's like you should pick something that isn't so noisy.
If it felt excessive, because like normally, like I don't mind. It's like, we do that for a little bit. Like, I get it. You gotta open up a bag of candy or ruffle through, but it just kept going.
Yeah,
and I was like, what in the hell is this? Have you ever seen anybody wrap gifts? like in a theater?
No.
I wasn't sure if like you were pulling from like a past experience or
No.
if like that was like
No,
that's just pulling it out, pulling out.
I was in the moment. I was sitting there and I was like thinking about like, what are you doing, wrapping gifts back there? Like I thought about like saying something, but I am not that. I am far too non-confrontational to do something like that.
Yeah, you don't strike me as somebody that would like. I mean, do you ever like? Okay, you might not do the shush or like the I'm gonna grab a manager thing, but do you ever do like the?
Not to a stranger.
But would you ever give them like the side eye? You know, like that you kind of like look at them like.
Yeah, but they won't see you do that. It's a movie theater.
Well, unless it's a bright scene, they might see it.
I mean, I did that in the theater. I looked at them. Like
you did look-
I
you
turned
did
my
look.
head to look at them.
Because sometimes the look's enough to get them to stop because they're like,
I don't
oh,
think it
geez,
did.
like or at least
The
someone
first
that
time
has
I was seeing it,
awareness.
I was with my family, and my little brother kept pulling his phone out in the middle of the movie, and he did it like 2 or 3 times, and then I was like, "Stop!"
Like this is not the time or place to do that.
Yeah.
It reminds me, just you talking. I'll get off this bag gift opening thing, but it does remind me of one of my worst movie theater experiences I had. This was when I think it was the first Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. It was that Spider-Man Homecoming, right? I think that's the first one with him. I don't know if you know.
I thought there was one before that.
Well, I think
don't know.
there's Homecoming, there's Far From Home, and then there's a like Way From Home. I think I'm saying this right. It doesn't matter. The first Tom Holland Spider-Man movie.
It's going to be a Spider-Man Home Alone.
Could. But when I saw that movie, it was at the old Windsong Theater here down the road. Which it's
You're
no
talking about the
longer-
one that was on the other side of town from the other theater.
So not the one that we went to.
The
but
one
like-
that's the AMC now.
Yeah, but now it's not anything. It's just
Oh, did they close?
It's just sitting there. It's just literally empty space. I think it just went under from COVID. But when they were open and that Spider-Man movie came out, I went to go see it with my then girlfriend at the time and then a couple friends. And I still like will never forget. It was like 30 minutes into the movie. 30 minutes into the movie, and these people like with their family just show up. They just come in, which I was already kind of baffled at that point because I knew it wasn't anybody new. Like they were just straight up coming into the movie a half hour late. Which at that point I'm like, what? Like why bother? Like
Right.
why are you even here?
Yep.
But then it occurred to me they probably just used it as glorified babysitting time because then there was like 5 kids that came, running in.
God.
And they didn't have gifts that they were wrapping, nothing like that. But I'm not kidding. They brought in a bunch of grocery bags and just practically had a whole meal there. Like they had I think they had like a pork chop or something. They had like snacks. They had 2-liter sodas, and like they're just like going to town on it.
Stopped at the Walmart deli on the way.
I mean, probably. It was just really obnoxious, and like I think everybody else was like able to still enjoy the movie, but it took me out of it so bad that I was just focused on them the whole time that I actually had to go back at a later date and watch it again so that I could actually watch the movie because I wasn't really watching it. It was terrible. Yeah, you shouldn't do that. But let's talk about Avatar.
Right. The whole, reason for being here.
No. The reason for being here is just this. Just talking. Just whatever. Nonsense. There doesn't have to be a point. I'm just kidding. Okay, so Avatar 2.
I have opinions.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope. And you're on a
Not all
podcast,
positive, actually.
I would say too that we might have an interesting back and forth on this. Mine is mostly positive, but
Yes.
I could, and I think I probably will understand where some of the potential grievances could come from. But
So the main ones that I have are
I guess overall thoughts. Why don't we start there?
I mean, I think it's just about as good as the first, if not. I don't know if I'd say better, but to me, it seemed like the second movie was like an afterthought of the first. Like, I don't know if there was actually a plan for a sequel based on like the story and the way things were introduced in the second one. I feel like there were several things that could have been mentioned in the first movie that just weren't.
Like, wait, hang on. So when you say mentioned in the first movie, you talking about like this? Or you mean like Avatar 1?
Avatar 1, I mean.
Okay.
Like, obviously, don't listen to this if you haven't seen the movie.
I would hope that goes without saying it at this point.
But
don't.
you know, there's Spider. It
Yep.
was never mentioned that.
That Quaritch had a kid.
Never.
Ever. Yeah.
Also, like, I don't know. They came back. There's just stuff about the story that seemed like they just made things up to make a sequel,
Okay.
but the things weren't set up for that to happen at the end of the first movie. You know what I mean?
So you're saying like some of the things that are introduced in this didn't really feel like they came organically from the first one. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely be getting into the plot and all that. But I think the first thing I wanted to talk about, just my overall thoughts too. I'll give that, and then I'll kind of go into what I had planned for those.
Okay. Yeah.
Overall thoughts, I did enjoy this, kind of similar to you. I mean, I think I enjoyed it almost as much as the first one, just from, I think, a pure theatrical experience,
Yep.
because I did enjoy the 3D. I love them kind of exploring a different biome of Pandora with the ocean that gave it some fresh air with it. And then I like the new creature designs, the different clan. We'll talk about the humans coming back. I don't love all the way on like kind of how they got them back into the story. It's not quite what I would have done, but I still like, I know, you have to have them there. They're the antagonist at the end of the day. But visually, like, I really enjoyed the movie. I also did enjoy some of the new themes in the movie, like with family and kind of the conflict that would come of you're trying to protect your kids, but also at the same time, it's like, when do you fight versus not fighting?
Right.
So there were some interesting angles, I thought, with that. And I think just being a big fan of the first one and following the road that it's taken to get to where we're at now, which is Avatar 2, I think I appreciate the movie a lot just from that aspect of it, just knowing
Like the
how
technicality of making it and all that.
the technical work behind it, the road it actually took to get there, which I don't know how much you know about, like, everything that's kind of preceded Avatar 1 to get to where we're at now.
After recording the last podcast, we went and watched the director's cut or whatever, and it sort of talked through a lot of that.
Yeah, because we watched like some of the behind the scenes, but I mean like what's been happening since the release of Avatar to like developing all the movies and everything.
I don't know like anything about any of that.
I went pretty deep into it, and so I know that it's taken a lot of work to get to this point. And the reason I bring that up on here and just kind of going back to my appreciation for the movie is that I guess I don't like expect the average audience member to necessarily go super in depth on like the development behind the scenes and everything like that. I get it. It takes time. But I started getting annoyed just over the years when I started seeing people like joke like, oh, yep, they're talking about the Avatar sequel again, the thing that'll never come out because, it's been like 7 years at this point.
It's like Half-Life 3, right?
What's that?
It's like Half-Life 3.
Yeah. It's like it's the sequel that never happened.
Yeah.
And I get it took a long time from that perspective, but I get annoyed because if you bother to actually take a look at what's been happening between now and then.
Yeah, but people don't.
No,
take the time.
Mass people, like mass populace.
Yes.
Like there are people that will check into this, I'm sure. But
it is a massive generalization of me saying that.
Yeah, and I'm not big on generalizations, but I couldn't help it because I'm online like everybody else, and I started getting tired of like these comments being like, oh my gosh, Avatar 2, and oh, it's never going to come out, and like what a waste of time. No one cares about the Na'vi and the blue people. Like, I guess I'm a defender at the end of the day.
I mean, clearly they do.
Clearly, the movie is making money. It's made now over $1 billion in less than 2 weeks from its release.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean that's not nothing. I know they had to probably spend a ton of marketing capital to get there, but it's not nothing. But I wanted to kind of walk through, just for my listeners, the road to kind of get to Avatar 2, just so I can hopefully maybe help clear some of this up and maybe explain to people that don't know as much why it's taken so long to get these sequels. I think it's interesting. So let's go all the way back to 2009, December of 2009. That's
right after the first one was released?
No, that's when the first one was released.
Yeah.
So Avatar 1 is released in December of 2009, but you have to remember, too, that Cameron originally conceived Avatar in 1995. Titanic, I think, was like shot, released sometime around 98, we'll call it.
Right.
So he had been conceptualizing, working on it for quite a while, and then, 2005, 2006, that's when he starts to actually get into production on the movie, and work it all up. And then, again, 2009 of December is when the first one releases. Now, after that point, we all know what happened. The movie blew up. It became huge. It changed the game for 3D. Not perfected, but it largely improved on performance capture that had previously been done in other films in the past. And then Cameron then started doing more deep ocean exploration. So I don't know if you remember that he went to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. So there's a documentary. I can't think of the name of it. It might be called like Challenger Deep Dive or something like that, because
I have no idea.
Someone can look this up, but there's a documentary that he put out, and he helped engineer this submersible to go to the very bottom of the ocean. And he's one of the few. I don't actually know if anybody's gone as deep as he has. He might have actually set a record for it.
Yeah, I would not do that.
It's a really good documentary. I would definitely recommend watching it, because it also showcases the love that Cameron has for the ocean and the water and everything, which we'll talk about that as well.
Right.
But anyway, so he goes and does that. He does this another documentary on the remains of the Titanic, Ghosts of the Abyss. So he's doing that in the meantime, doing these documentaries, doing this deep sea research. He's also taken a lot of his time in getting into actual conservationship. I think he goes actually to. I think he goes to Brazil and other handful of countries like that, trying to find ways to get them clean water and do things like that. So this is taking, I'm kind of generalizing here, but this is taking years of his time. And Cameron himself has gone on record and saying that kind of during this time in his life, he really wasn't sure actually if he was going to do sequels to Avatar. Okay, kind of to your point.
Yeah.
But then around 2012 is when he kind of gets back into the saddle, so to speak, for Avatar, and he's like, okay, I think I want to have more stories to tell on this planet, but I don't want to just do another sequel. He's like, I really want to kind of take my ideas and concepts and put it into a writer's room and flesh out multiple sequels, sort of like what Peter Jackson did for shooting all 3 Lord of the Rings simultaneously. So that starts in 2012. He gets a bunch of writers. Some of them were on board with him from the first one that helped him kind of pen the story up.
Right.
And from there, from 2012 to about 2015, it's my understanding that those writers basically just solely worked on the story, because they were planning on shooting Avatar 2, 3, 4, and potentially even 5 all back to back. And they also were wanting to develop new underwater motion capture technology that hadn't been done, because Cameron's always had a love and fascination for underwater exploration. He wanted to further that. I mean, the joke is that South Park makes even that he set such a high bar for himself. I feel like he doesn't even want to do a movie unless he feels like he's pushing the envelope beyond what is expected.
UV lights on. Pressure system is normal. Music on.
His name is James Cameron, the bravest pioneer. No budget too steep, no sea too deep. Who's that? It's him, James Cameron.
Systems are normal. You guys hearing the song okay up there?
James Cameron, explorer of the sea.
Yes, James, we'd hear the song.
He spends all this time doing that, and then finally in 2015, maybe 2016, is when they actually start shooting the sequels. And again, they're filming these back to back, and what you have to remember too about the sequel shooting is that Avatar is not a traditional movie. You have an entirely separate component of it that is live action, and then you have all performance capture, and then you have all the effects that have to get sent over to Weta Digital to go ahead and perfect how the Na'vi look. So very complicated and also very time consuming to do that. And then I think it's also my understanding that around actually 2019-ish, the second one could have actually conceptually been ready to go. It could have actually been released, I think. But then what ends up happening, of course, in 2020 is that whole thing called coronavirus and the pandemic. And I don't know why they didn't necessarily release it before that, or if it was actually ready. I feel like they just at the time didn't think the timing was right, and they were, naturally just going to wait a little bit longer and push it into 2020 because they're like, whatever, it's just going to give the team more time to tighten up the effects, and no one's at this point in a super big rush for this.
Right.
Most of the work's been done. But then, of course, the pandemic happened and completely shook up theater as we know it. I mean, the entertainment industry is still recovering from it. So naturally, they're not going to drop it in 2020. We all saw what happened with Christopher Nolan's Tenet, which arguably you could call success, but
I don't think I even heard about it.
There you go. But point is, though, is that I totally get why the studio wouldn't want to drop something like that during such conditions. And then 2021 is kind of a similar deal where, like, you're still in the woods with it. We weren't really fully out. And even you could still argue to this day, there's still coronavirus that's out there.
Yeah, it's never going to go away.
No, I mean, like, we have to adapt with it and live with it. But then now, this brings us all the way up to now, December of 2022 is when Avatar: The Way of Water gets released. And then finally, Avatar 3 comes out in 2024. Avatar 5 will come out in 2026. And then Avatar, the next one would be 2028. So at least that's the roadmap right now.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been talking a lot on that. It's just it's a lot to unpack, but I mean I think it's again kind of worth mentioning going over this timeline rather than just thinking Cameron just sat there on the sequels and did nothing for the last 13 years.
Well, yeah.
No. Yeah,
Most people don't do the research.
No, I suppose not. But this is a podcast, so I just figure, hey,
I mean, you've done it, so
might as well be informative.
Yeah.
I guess, what are your thoughts on just the time it took? I mean, were you patient enough to wait?
I didn't really expect a sequel, so I was like, yeah, that was a good movie. But as far as I was concerned, that was the end of it until I heard that, yeah, there is a sequel coming and there's a release date, and I was like, oh, nice.
Yep.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I'm glad it's doing well. I think it's deserving of the success it's seeing.
Over 3,000 people worked on that movie, or these movies, I should say.
I believe it.
Yep. Let's talk about the story. Let's get into it, because I think I want to kind of hear more about like some of the things you weren't super thrilled about.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about some of that as well and just kind of go into it. But like the story itself, like, let's go.
Yeah. So I mean, also I think in the first podcast I said something about it being sort of story-wise, very formulaic, I think is what I said. This one wasn't any different. Bad thing happens. Humans are coming back.
Right.
Then they're like, oh, we got to fight them.
So plot-wise, it's still fairly...
It's still formulaic, but
Yeah.
I don't think the story is really what makes the Avatar movies good.
Right.
Like I said, visuals and all that was probably my favorite. But yeah, humans come back. They fight the humans. This time, the general came back.
Yep.
As
we'll definitely be talking about that.
as a Navi
Is
now.
it a clone?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not him.
Which is also a thing that I think they could have like hinted at in the first one,
That,
getting
like,
back to my
he would have like
the fact that they cloned or like got
Right.
extracted the memories or whatever is.
But to be fair again, just to Cameron, I do think he kind of thought that first one was just going to be
I
a
thought
one and done.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yeah, so he probably didn't even think of it at the time.
Yes. But yeah, so he came back. You get him going out to be a headhunter basically for the main character, Jake Sully.
Yep.
Who I think he actually kind of took more of a supporting role in this movie.
Well, both the mom and the dad do, because you have a lot of new characters with the kids and the family.
Yep.
So it's only natural that like you have to kind of share the screen time where you will. And then we also have to keep in mind too that because we now know that these other sequels are coming down, we don't know, I guess, how big of these other roles they have to kind of play as the story continues.
Right. And then the story also introduces, a few questions to be answered in the next one, obviously, or the next few, I suppose. the main being, at least the main question I have after watching this
Yep.
is, I'm forgetting the character's name.
Which one?
Sigourney Weaver's daughter.
That's Kiri. I think it's Kiri.
yeah.
And it's not Kiki. It's a Kiri.
You're right.
Yeah.
And it's, how she came to exist, and, why she's different compared to everyone else. Why does she have such a strong connection to Awa or whatever, right?
I have some theories.
I also do, but,
Okay.
we won't end up with a concrete answer until...
No, but
or
we
maybe
can-
we won't
we
even end
can-
up with a concrete answer.
Yeah, but I think it'd be fun to speculate. I mean, like that's
Yes.
it's fun to
Yes.
speculate. Think about.
I mean,
this.
It was born from the avatar of Sigourney Weaver's character.
Yes. Which, I mean, it is. Well, I guess I let me ask it and see what you thought about this, because I do remember that it's not like in like the Matrix where it's like if you become disconnected, like in like that you die, right? Like the human does not die from it necessarily, or neither does the avatar.
Right.
Like they can like disconnect from each other. And I guess it would make sense that her avatar is still alive, because the avatar itself, I don't think ever got injured in the first one.
All of the... I mean, biologically, obviously, I don't know
Right.
the biology of a Na'vi, and I
No.
think they have the creative freedom to kind of do whatever they want anyway. But,
Right.
I mean, I'd assume that when they're disconnected, they're in some sort of coma state where
Yep. They're just like a
their
vegetable.
brainstem or whatever takes care of, their heart beating, the breathing, and, all of the automatic functions of your body. So as long as they keep nutrition going through the blood,
Right.
you're going to be fine. But I guess my big theory is that when they were doing like the little ceremony thing to put Sigourney Weaver's character into the avatar, I think like Awa did something to like create life in the womb of the avatar somehow.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on this. So my theory is similar to yours. I don't think there's like a dad, like a straight
I don't
dad.
think-
Like
I
they
don't think
kind
so
of
either.
joke. They're like, "Oh, it's Norm, man. Like he kind of,
Yeah.
he thinks Sigourney Weaver's hot." I don't think it's that. It does give me a vibe, like a strong vibe of like almost she could be like the Jesus of Pandora.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, because, just like, Christ and whatnot, I'm trying to get preachy, but like, Jesus doesn't have a biological dad. The conception of him is considered mysterious. So that's kind of immediately where my mind went, was that somehow, like you said, because of Sigourney Weaver's soul kind of being absorbed into Awa, perhaps it's like a reincarnation into the character of Kiri, which is played by Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Or it was like-
7-year-old playing a 14-year-old.
Or it was like a partial transfer of
Yeah.
Sigourney Weaver's... What's the character's name?
Kiri.
No.
Oh, Grace Augustine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or it's like Grace's... No.
It's definitely
Or, yeah,
not
Grace.
all of Grace, because they have those scenes where like she's talking to Grace, being like, "Hi, mom." Like
right,
that
but I think
kind of
it's like a
thing.
partial transfer, because then that could also explain why connecting to the spirit tree or whatever it was called caused the seizure and everything, because
Yeah.
there's a part of Grace's soul or whatever that's in the soul
Awa.
tree,
Yeah.
and there's part of it that's in Kiri.
So maybe it's just like them connecting is almost unnatural. It's like a circuit breaker overload or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that scene I think is certainly going to be one that's going to be speculated about until this new one comes out, because it's certainly like a what the hell just happened.
Assuming
there.
that it even answers it. That might be a question
Yeah.
that they use to,
I don't know.
like, they may not even answer it.
No, but she does. We also know that she does have like not an unnatural, but she has a super strong connection to the environment. Like she can even control, as we see in the
Right.
movie, some of the environment. Other people can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think, no matter what, I think it's pretty clear that her character is going places in the new one, and that she's going to play, I would think, a pivotal part of this next one.
Yep.
That's
I
what I would
agree.
think for sure. But I did enjoy that. I'll say that. Like I enjoyed how that character exists. I don't know where it's going necessarily right now, but like I enjoyed the character. It never like took me out that Sigourney Weaver was this person. Like I could sometimes hear it like in the voice, like, oh yeah. Like,
I didn't even really think about it. It's just, I guess I don't really care about who plays who
like the
or whatever.
performance and
Yeah,
whatnot.
it's just the character and whether or not, you know, they play the character.
Yeah. Well, I think they did a good job.
I agree.
Sorry, for me, I go back to like the performance for this character particularly, just because Sigourney Weaver, again, she's like 70 or like she's older for sure. And I just find it very fascinating somebody, even with performance capture, having to essentially pretend to be a kid again.
Right.
I mean, just from an actor's perspective, I think that's a really unique challenge, and I wonder like if she just loves James Cameron so much that she's like, oh yeah, like sure, like I'll play a kid, whatever, like, or if there was like they had to like maybe like talk about it more. I don't know, but I want to talk about Stephen Lang being back as the Colonel, Blue Devil. He's back, and from what I've seen anyway, and I'll talk about what I think about this too, but some people aren't happy about him like being the villain because they're like wasn't he like just dead?
I think that was sort of hammer-fisted. Like he, you know, like he plays a great villain. Like he's a great bad guy. But like, I don't know, the way the first one ended, it seemed like that should have been the end of it for him at least.
Right.
Yeah, the humans are still the bad guy in the movie. But
do you think they just could have like perhaps like take this new general girl, like the general?
Yeah, she could have been. Like, she could have been like the new bad guy,
like bad person,
the new like antagonist.
This is something where I kind of have to be careful with how I go about this because I don't know. So for me, because I know other sequels are coming, it's like the story is not complete. So it's hard. Sure, it's hard for me. Sure. But I get it from like just a singular movie. If I'm not looking at,
but even if you're not looking ahead, like they didn't need to bring him back to have a sequel.
I didn't hate him being back though.
Well, neither did I.
Yeah,
I agree. He plays a great villain.
Right.
He played the part great. He was awesome. But like, I think. Like, I don't know. It seems like such a weird. I mean, they really just sort of forced it in there, right? Like, there was no reason that they had to bring him back.
Did he have to come back? No. I mean, I'll say like just to answer that. I think no. I don't think he like you could have still I think told a story even depending on how the sequel shape up without him, and it probably still would have been pretty compelling.
Yeah,
I can agree with that. But I didn't hate him being back because at least what I found interesting was he was a pretty good baddie in the first one, and I don't know if they just maybe didn't like want to find somebody else for, you know, to either try to like duplicate him or be similar to him, and they still felt there was more to tell with it. But I guess what I liked is that when he did come back, it's not just straight him. Like even his avatar is like kind of younger. He's in a even more prime state physically.
Well, sure.
Certainly could be more menacing because he can obviously. I thought they were actually going to do more with that, like having him like blend in with like the people and kind of get like more guerrilla style into like his warfare, but that didn't really happen.
Well, I mean, it was still guerrilla warfare, but
yeah. But I don't know. I thought like he was going to like I don't know even become more Na'vi, like just like get in the mud as he says that at one point in the movie.
Part of me thinks that the reason why they brought him back is because they're gonna have him like have a change of heart next sequels.
I was thinking the same thing because
of the way that this one ended with his son Spider, or I think his real name was Miles, right?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like he just did like a junior thing, because his character's name's Miles. But yes, I thought the same thing. I kind of immediately thought that. I was just like, well, I mean, he did do like let's think about this. Like in the first one, I would definitely argue that he is like the actual Miles Quaritch is doing a shitload of damage. Like he is bad. Like he is just like he's destroying Home Tree. He is like being directly responsible for bad stuff happening. Whereas this clone, I mean, there is a scene where he has his
He's still
grunt guy
doing
shoot
bad
the-
stuff,
Yeah, but hear me out here. I'm saying like,
but he hesitated because
Yes.
his kid was there witnessing it.
that, and hang on. So I'm trying to piece this together. Quick.
Okay,
So
yeah.
it's like he does order like his one bald grunt guy to shoot the fish. Not great.
Right.
Obviously, it's bad. He's
But
having
then-
them like, go and torture the people. Like, I'm not saying that he's not doing bad stuff, but I feel like comparatively to what the actual Miles did, it's not as horrible. Meaning that if he does redeem, you could make a case to have the redemption be a bit more passable if that happens.
But I think without the Miles character, it wouldn't happen. I think he would
Like
have.
his son.
I think he would have continued to. Yeah, his son. I think he would have continued to do bad things. So, like they were
It's
at
true.
the first. Oh God, the words are so big, and my brain is so small.
It's not true.
The Metcaina.
Metakaina?
Yeah, yeah.
that's how you say it.
The ocean people when he was at the first village, he was going to kill the
Yeah, he was like straight up going to have the guy shoot the girl
yeah.
for not.
Well,
giving
it was
information.
even the Saik, I think is the word. It's supposed to be like their healer or whatever, and then
Yep.
it's a very pivotal role in the
Yep.
village,
Yep.
and they were just going to kill her. But
Yep.
I think his son Spider
Mm-hmm.
ended up preventing that from happening.
Yes. Which
I mean, he still burnt the village to the ground, basically.
Sure, yeah. I'm not like condoning him. I mean, he's certainly bad in this. He's
Yes.
certainly very bad. But I just feel like, yes, to what you said, his son certainly seems to be something that like wasn't in the last movie. Like he didn't have any semblance of a heart in the last movie,
Right.
whereas this is a more personal connection. So it is, I guess, so to speak, showing a potential side that could have been in the real Courage, but now this clone that has his memories still feels, I suppose a sense of conflict with that because of just the blood relationship there.
Yep.
Because, the story is ultimately about family at the end of the day. But
Good
yeah, I would agree with that. No, I would agree with this too, though, because like if I am thinking about it just on the fly, yeah, he probably would have straight up executed like everybody there had the kid not been there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that
Makes sense. But I do think because at the end when his kid saves him, I remember because I've now seen this twice in theaters, and I still remember a couple people whispering around this, being like, "Oh my god, like why is he saving him? Why is he saving him?"
Yeah.
Did you think it like made sense for him to save him?
I mean, like, if you try and put yourself in the shoes of him, right? Like, I don't know. Even if family is terrible, it is still very hard to like completely disconnect and not have some sort
Yeah.
of bond. And even if he wasn't family, like, saving him would have been the right thing to do.
Yeah, because he was raised by the Solis essentially, which are good people, and they probably
Well-
no man left behind kind of thing. I don't know if I'm reaching for that.
I mean, the good is difficult because, there's two sides to it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know necessarily that there's a good or an evil side. There is two different, species of beings,
Yeah.
highly intelligent, and they're both just trying to survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, humans kind of are being real mean about it, and but yeah, I mean, from the Na'vi side, definitely humans bad.
I think it made sense that he saved him.
I agree.
that
I
Miles
think
did.
so too. But at the same time, like, yeah, it would be a very. I mean, it was sort of hinted at that it was a very big like moral dilemma for him.
Yes.
When he found him.
Yes.
Because there was like probably 30 seconds before he decided what to do.
I think the character of Spider, I actually was surprised because like I liked him more than I thought because sometimes like I don't know, like he could have definitely ran the risk of being like the annoying kid character. Like it could have came off bad if they didn't get a good actor to do that.
Right.
But what I found interesting about his character is that almost like an opposite of Jake, where it's like he Jake starts to be a human, gravitates more towards the Na'vi. It's almost like you flip the switch on this, where this character really kind of knows the Na'vi, but hasn't really known humanity.
Yep.
He hasn't really had human contact, and so like I feel like true human contact. There's the couple human side characters that are there with him, but he hasn't really had that kind of upbringing. So I feel like instinctually he would have a curiosity about that, even if he knows that like his dad is like this like scumbag person.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it's like there is something to be said about just like your primal urge to like be connected to something bigger than yourself. I think does that make sense?
Yeah,
what I'm trying to go for.
Yeah, I think the reason that Spider was there is majorly as a plot device to drive the story, because without Spider in this, there wouldn't have been like there wouldn't have been a step to step on for the sequel after this one, for the third.
Yeah, because I guess if we're thinking about it, without Spider in at least that scene, I mean, Courage would have just drowned, or clone
even
Courage
ignoring that, like
right.
Even if Courage like survived or whatever, right? Without Spider, like a lot of the things that Spider was doing, I think, was driving the plot. Mm-hmm. Because like I don't think they would have found. Well, I guess I'm just sort of like trying to think about like what would the story have been like without him in it.
It's hard to say,
right?
Because he is a critical component to it.
But I think even without him, I think it would still have flown, like flown.
Fly by? Like,
no, I don't know. I don't flown. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Did your thought just derail?
Yeah,
like it just collapsed.
Yeah, but
it's all right.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the bigger like plot devices for the next movie is Spider and Courage. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see where that goes. I mean, only time will tell. It'll be fun to speculate, for sure. Also, will be interesting to see, because I imagine, is that my wife that just like yawned?
Yes. Yep.
Powerful yawn. It was loud. Anyways, whenever the physical release for this comes out, I mean, Cameron releases usually are chock full of behind the scenes stuff, so I'm sure I'll probably nerd out and watch every bit of it and try to speculate even further.
I'm probably gonna wait to buy anything until after.
Do you want to get like the massive like box set?
Yeah.
Isn't that a tempting thing? Like, huh? I'm just agreeing with you. Like, it's a tempting thing when other sequels are coming and you're like,
I'm just gonna wait.
I could wait.
Well, that's why I went and saw this one 3 times, right? Like
you're just like, oh, I'm gonna get my fill of this, and then and
then I'll probably watch the first and the second one before the third one comes out again to refresh my memory and so on. But anyway, the plot. Yeah.
Yep. Let's shift gears here. I mean, we're going to stay on the plot, but I want to talk about just kind of entering back into Pandora. Like, what did you think of just everything that transpired from the first to the second? Because the first kind of act of the movie, they were showing like the forest and what Jake's been up to and everything like that.
It is. I think they did a poor job of like
the exposition,
communicating how much time had passed from the events of the first movie till the end. Like, I have no idea how old any of his kids are.
Okay.
Like, I assume they're all like mid to late teens. Well, the oldest is mid to late teens.
Yeah.
But it's still like, I don't know. Like, is it, or maybe, I don't know. It's hard to say how much time had passed between the events of the first movie and the second.
Yeah, I mean, I know in the beginning they like when they're kind of going through the exposition dump of that scene of just like, this is what I've been doing.
Right.
They have like that 1 year later thing. So like we know
at least 1 year has gone by.
like we know that, but yes, I mean I would understand where you're coming from, where you're like during that sort of montage of like the family, it's not quite clear the age and
Right.
whatnot. I guess you kind of guess. I mean, I'm trying to think what they would do to fix that. Just, past putting like year 21, 50,
and
whatever.
I think doing that is sort of like kind of lazy when they say 1 year later or whatever. It's like, okay,
Right.
like this time has passed and nothing of any real consequence happened between there. Like,
The only thing I think I saw that happen is it looked like, because I don't think they were in like that cave fortress in the Hallelujah Mountains prior to the humans returning. They were still in the forest.
I think
like,
you're right.
That made them retreat up there. At least that's what I got.
yeah, I would assume. But
I did think it was interesting how I actually would have. Well, hang on. It was interesting that like more of the Na'vi, at least the ones in the forest, were kind of becoming more accustomed to the human weaponry that was left behind, because it Sully has his raids and everything.
I don't think. Oh, well, that was after the humans came back.
Oh, it wasn't like they didn't have any of that stuff before. You don't think?
No, I don't think so. I think I think they got that from doing the raids.
I guess. I guess that makes sense to get
because I mean, at least probably like 10 years had gone by since the events of the first movie.
I mean, definitely, yeah, at least, yeah.
And I doubt that, I guess it's hard to say, but
yeah.
I mean, from Jake's perspective, I don't know if he would have expected them to come back.
I mean, how could you not?
I mean, I don't know. They got their butts kicked pretty hard.
Yeah,
so.
but the business person in me kicks in where it's like, I feel like no one would want to let an investment go to waste. Like they probably spent a truckload of money building that whole operation.
Yeah, but they abandoned it completely.
I know, but
like they weren't even, when they came back, they weren't even going for the unobtainium anymore.
Yeah, did you think that was interesting? That like they don't even mention it. It's like apparently unobtainium doesn't really matter now. Now it's just whale goop that stops aging.
And also, it's like, how did they find that? They were purely searching for unobtainium, and then they were like, oh, there's these whales.
Yeah.
So let's kill them, and then let's drill into their brain so we can get their goop and test it.
And they made it definitely sound like that was like a practice, because it wasn't the first time when those guys did it. They're just like, yep,
right.
We've done this before. Let's get the drill. Like just
right, but they'd only been there for like a year.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, like
I thought that was a pretty
valid.
big plot hole where they were just like, yeah, this is the moneymaker right here. This is worth way more than unobtainium.
Like, I understood what they were doing with their clear imagery of like, the space whales of Avatar are certainly mirroring people that like hunt and poach whales and other stuff. Like I totally bought that, got it. Message loud and clear, Cameron. I want to save the whales. I get you. But I
was very just like.
But I will agree.
Random.
I will agree with you about the new unobtainium, the whale goop,
right?
Because they kind of just have this scene where it's like, yep, we got the whale goop, and you kind of thought at first like they're just like hunting the whale to like draw out the Na'vi to piss them off because like they killed one of their beloved sea creatures.
Mm-hmm.
But then they have the scene, with the goop, and I feel like again maybe it's just sequel setup that they even have that line in there. It stops human aging completely, like. Are they just saying that because this whale goop is going to come into play, or is
I don't think so. I think it's just
purely a plot device.
I think so, and I don't even think it's a necessary plot device, really.
I don't know.
I think the only reason they had to make it worth something.
Yeah.
To kill the whales, otherwise they wouldn't have had the equipment to do it.
Yeah, I guess. I will say like I don't know where they're going with it. It might just be baloney right now because I feel
like it won't come up again.
Because when I first saw the new one of my questions once they kind of started having the humans come back more is I'm like, okay, who's going to bring up unobtainium? Like someone's going to talk about this, and then apparently it's just we don't need that. Yeah, who cares that it sells for 20 trillion a kilo? Like whatever.
Yeah, it's like why aren't they doing both?
Yeah, I didn't get that. I can admit that that's a problem. That's a problem right there.
There's a gap there, I think.
Yes, and again, I guess I'll keep being, beating a dead horse, and just being like, well, maybe it'll make sense when the other ones come out. But for now, I can see what you're saying. That's
also
a big,
a big. I sort of think into things a little bit more than I should probably, but like, there's that scene where the humans are landing, right, for the first time again, where they have the big rocket.
Yep, and it just
burns everything,
in its
right?
path. Yep.
They know where Jake is, right? They know he's in the mountains. Why don't they just do that to the mountains?
Like just land on it and just like burn them up.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if can they land their equipment up there?
They don't need to actually land anything there. They have the ability to just hover above the ground, right?
Okay, so wait a minute. You're saying that like the big like rocket that's like dropping down, just like, all right, let's just position them over these mountains. Just
if it's that big of a problem that they cloned a guy, like 20 guys, to send them in to hunt the guy down, and I don't know.
So
it seems
you're saying like it kind of seems like they have the firepower, like just fine.
I think that they could have just avoided it all, and they could just torch it, just burn the whole thing down, because clearly they don't care.
They say at one point that they want to, like, because they say Earth is dying and that they're going to try to recolonize it. So would that make them not want to torch the whole planet if like they have plans?
Well, yeah, but if the one guy is that big of a problem that they need to, do this whole thing, like,
it's like almost it's reminding me of like when America and like the world for that matter was so hard up on getting Osama that like I'm pretty sure most people were perfectly fine with drone striking the hell out of different areas if there was a possibility it gets them.
And I mean,
right,
from our perspective, that would have been terrible because there would have been a bunch of innocent people that would have died. But
for sure,
it's the same story.
Well, is that a thing? Are there humans that like don't want bad Na'vi press, that like don't want to see them cook the?
I mean, the Na'vi already hates the humans. They call them demons, right? Like,
yeah, that's true. They really don't like them.
They had the Sully family. Some of them had 4 fingers, and they were like, they have demon blood, and everyone is like, that's awful. This is terrible. Like,
yeah, even some of the Na'vi, they're just like, ugh, gross.
Like, and I just like, I don't know. I don't know the reason for them not just doing that, right? Like, if the Na'vi are that big of a problem, like why not just take the nuclear option? like they don't care. Otherwise, they wouldn't have burned the big whole spot to land in the first place.
Maybe it's just the whale goop. Like they figured out the whale goop.
Yeah, but they figured that out. That has nothing to do with the land.
Yeah, just torch it and just.
And it's not like they have to do that everywhere. They want one guy dead.
And they certainly didn't try to like say, well, we can't like hurt the unobtainium reserves. Like there wasn't any line of like
even then, fire isn't going to hurt that probably.
Yeah, that's a metal or it's a mineral.
Well, yeah,
so,
but
probably be fine.
Also, it's underground. Like,
I feel like let me ask you this: if you met James Cameron, would you ask him this question? Like, just
I would probably ask him a lot of questions.
Why didn't you just straight up like have him? Just
well, I know why they didn't, and it was because there wouldn't have been a movie without if they did that. It's like in the horror movie. It's like, oh, we have to go live in this creepy house. No, like it's just that easy. Then there's no movie, but.
I'm just trying to picture like Avatar 2 and like
it's like a 30-minute movie
over in like 15 like 20 30 minutes and just like
the humans are coming back, burns that.
Just end credits.
Yeah
that'd be a short movie. That's fair.
Like I get why they didn't do it, but at the same time it's like you knew where they were. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is another reason for me to go back and rewatch it too, because you're not wrong to have any of these thoughts. I'll say that. I mean, like it totally is logical where you're coming from.
Like I get why they didn't do it, but
still, it's like I notice it. You see it,
right?
Yeah.
I always see plot holes like that, and it's just like.
Are you that guy? Like usually, like if you watch something, you're just like, well,
yeah.
Yeah.
They
Certain
need
movies
they
will
need
do
a guy
that.
like me or that does that.
You could be
like
in the writer's room.
yeah, just be in there and be like, hold on,
Hey guys,
hold
did
on.
we think about this?
Come on, like I have these questions based off of what you just said. Like, how does that work?
Well, I don't know if you know this just like on the filmmaking process, but usually big movies like this, especially ones where they know there's going to be sequels, they have script supervisors that are on set, and they have them there purposely to kind of be not quite like to the extent that you're saying, but like they have them there to be like, if you're doing something and it doesn't continuity wise like add up or mesh, they'd be like, well, no, like we have to shoot it like this because that doesn't make sense based off that previous scene.
Basically,
like a script
subject matter
supervisor.
experts of the story, basically.
Yeah, like they know the beats and like the pace and everything like that.
Yeah.
You could do that.
I mean, maybe,
Be a
but
consultant. They haven't shot Avatar 5 yet, I don't think.
yeah,
Or
just
the fourth one.
yeah, you got James Cameron's phone number. I'll call him right up and just be like, hey,
I call him Jimmy.
be like, hey, I noticed all these holes in your plot, man. Like, what's going on? Like,
Now, plot wise, Cameron's never been perfect, and I would
mean, I
would
don't
definitely
I don't expect any movie to be perfect, but I
No.
notice when there's like gaps.
an inconsistency, or at least like. You know what you're reminding me of right now is I think it's Austin Powers, the spy who shagged me. You're like kind of like Seth Green's character, where rather than going through like the convoluted
It's
plot,
like,
he's just like,
why
dude,
tie him
like,
up? Just
it's like-
shoot him in the head.
Yeah, he's just like, why don't you just go back in time to like when he's taking a crap? I got a gun in my room. We'll go kill him. Like,
yeah.
I'm going to go back to the 60s and steal Austin Powers' mojo.
If you have a time machine, why not just go back and kill Austin Powers when he's sitting on the crapper or something?
problem solved.
Yeah, exactly. It's like just like you don't care about nature, so why
Right.
like why
Oh my god.
go through all this headache and waste all these millions cloning these guys to go hunt the guy down? Just nuclear option.
It's always on
Agent
the
Orange
table.
them to death. That's all you gotta do, man. Like
Damn. It's terrible. But I mean, we'll have to get you in touch with that writer's room.
yeah, we'll get right on that.
We'll get right on that. I want to talk about the Sully family, like the kids, and just not just the kids of like Jake and Natiri's, but like the new Water Clan, their kids. Like, what do you think of all them?
So my first thought is, what a shame for the oldest kid.
Yeah.
For the actor that portrays him. I don't know who it is, but what a shame that your character died, because you're gonna lose out on so much money. Like,
I mean, I'm sure he'll clear some good
I'm
funds.
sure,
but yeah, I'm
but
sure he's probably
it's
like,
like-
I can't be in the sequel.
it's like, dang it, why did my character have to die, man?
That's true. I actually, thing I thought was interesting about just honestly a lot of the new characters and even the recurring ones too is, how like in the first one, Sam Worthington, I'll use him as an example. Like you kind of connect with him as a human and a Na'vi. Like you see like the actor, the real actor, and then the performance captured version of him in Na'vi.
Yep.
And I always just wonder from an actor's perspective if that would be difficult if you're playing like kind of solely a Na'vi, because like Natiri, Zoe Saldana, we never see obviously her as a human. But I just like wonder like maybe that would be good as an actor. Like maybe one of those kids like they get famous off this movie, but like they could totally walk by me in the street. I'd have no idea that it's probably them. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's
I
like
know
some
what you mean.
anonymity to like hide behind.
Because they aren't immediately recognizable based off of
No. And even like some of the ones they use, I mean, these are definitely up and coming actors. Like they've never been in things.
Right.
So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
I like the new characters. Like I like Cliff Curtis. I've always actually liked him a lot as an actor. He plays the main clan leader of the Water People.
Yeah. Okay.
I've seen him in a lot of things. It's cool to see him in this movie. I liked his character overall. He's kind of a strong, stern leader. Has respect for Jake, but still concerns over his tribe and the family. Ronal, Kate Winslet. I thought they were going to do more with her. She didn't really do a ton
Which
for
character
me.
was that?
That's the pregnant avatar.
Oh,
of the Water People. You know what I'm...
Yeah, I know the character, but I'm trying
She's like
to think
the
of.
mom. I mean, like her...
Well, she's like the healer,
yeah, she's their healer. Yep.
but I forget the word for it.
I can't think of it.
Sahik.
Is that what that is?
I think so,
I-
or something,
I'll take
or
your
something
word for it.
similar. But yeah, I mean, the characters themselves was good.
Yeah. I liked most of the younger kids. Like, I like their dynamic with, like, the other kids. And, like, they're kind of doing that hazing thing where, like, you're not really from here, so we're going to screw with you a little bit. Like, okay.
The part when they took... I feel terrible, but I didn't even catch the younger son's name until, like, this last time that I watched it.
Totally on the same page with you, because the first time I watched it,
they only say his name like 3 or 4 times in the whole movie, I think. And
yeah, because there's Nateum's
he's the older brother.
The older.
Yeah.
And then who the hell's the younger one?
I think it started with a J, but I don't remember.
Yeah,
but the younger son, when they took him out to out of the reef and then they left him behind, like that could have just straight up killed him. Like,
I thought that scene was good.
I thought he was gonna, when I first saw the movie, I thought he was dead. Like, I thought that was the end for that character.
But then he makes friends with the whale.
Yeah. Which also, I forget what the name of the outcast whale is, but...
Yeah, they said his name. I actually picked up his name a little bit more this time. The first time I couldn't really quite remember. It starts like a P, I think.
Yes. But that is one of my favorite...
Picaius? Or,
it's something like that. But I think that is like my favorite character of the whole movie, yeah.
Why?
Just, I don't know. There's something about being the one that's willing to fight back is just... I like that.
I liked how... there's a couple of things I liked. One, I think there's just some gorgeous scenes with the whales.
That was totally on purpose. And
oh, yeah.
Agree. Those, like, especially the one where the outcast and the youngest son were, like, vertical in the water.
Amazing.
There's no reason for them to be positioned like that at all.
But it looks cool.
Yes.
There's definitely multiple sequences in this, and I didn't care because I had waited, like everybody else, like 13 years. There's certain scenes that you would argue are indulgent because it's just
they
like,
are pure
look how
eye candy.
Pretty we are.
It's just pure eye candy. That's all it is.
But that's what you're for,
that's Avatar.
That's like saying that, like, you're gonna go to, like, a Fast and Furious movie, and, like, if they try to, like, remove all the cars, you're just like, like that's, come on, like, what are you there for? Like,
and while we're on the topic of family and Fast and Furious, they should have got Vin Diesel in here, man.
It's funny you should say that.
Is he in the next one? He's gonna be the next antagonist.
I don't know, but I will tell you because I've been following the development of Avatar for a while, and his name was attached to the project for a while. And I saw on the IMDb, because I follow that a lot too. I don't think his name is on there, but for the longest time his name was attached on, like, all the sequels.
Maybe he was in the writer's room, and that's why family's so important.
Let's hope not. But let's hope not. Vin, nothing against you, but you to me are not a terrific writer.
He's a family man. What do you mean?
He certainly is something.
Anyway, I definitely like I don't even remember the guy's name, the human marine biologist that was in a lot of the scenes.
Yes, Jermaine Clementine or something like that.
Yeah.
He's usually actually in comedies.
When he saw the Tukun, the one fight back, and he was like in awe. He was like, whoa, like this is completely different than anything else we've ever seen.
And you almost like see, one, I like that he kind of has the conflict of, I'm here to, like, be, like, the subject matter expert for these terrible...
Well, he doesn't want to be doing what they're doing.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's there to be, like, this scientific expert, but obviously he clearly hates it. I like that his part where... I can't remember if it's...
And that's why I drank.
When he says like, that's why I drank, because he's just like, I literally feel ashamed of myself for, like, for, like, helping you piece of shit poachers out.
He drinks to forget, but he always remembers.
That's some dark truth.
Yeah.
Dark truth that can happen. But I actually think, like, that moment shortly before the dickhead Australian guy's arm gets ripped off by the one, which great death scene.
When he said...
Great death scene.
When he says... I thought you were the one with the harpoon or whatever.
It's shortly around that scene, but I almost feel like that character, the marine biologist guy,
I hope he comes back.
I think he was like so in awe of it. I actually think that if he were to die, he probably would have been okay. Because he probably would have just been like...
I don't think he would have been upset by it.
No, like I think it, like
way.
this is like we had this coming. Like
yes.
the ocean is telling us get the hell out of us and like stop mining our brain goop. And yeah, I think he'll come back because I didn't see him straight up die.
No, he got down when the cable came across. So they would have been left in that boat, I think.
Oh, so I apologize. My phone. Hang on, I'm gonna actually take this quick.
Yeah, that's fine.
Second. Okay, where were we at? We were talking about the marine
toucan
biologist.
And the marine biologist. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be fine if he came back. I liked him. He didn't like necessarily have a ton of screen time, but he was an enjoyable character.
Yes, he was a very good supporting character for.
Yes.
Like the main thing going on.
Were you upset at all, or just kind of fine with the fact that the returning characters from the first one didn't really hardly do anything past like the epilepsy scene, like where they're there, like they really took a back seat to everything else?
I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
And I'm not bothered by it, but like,
it's good to see them.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're gonna play some sort of role in the rest of the movies, right. Or maybe even, I mean, who knows? They might die in one of the movies.
It's true.
Because I mean, I think they sort of set up the youngest son to be like a very important character in the following movies, especially like with the scene where Jake fights Quaritch.
I did like he had his kind of Sam Worthington moment where he's just like, well, let's just get it done. Like,
oh yeah,
it's badass. Like,
I was talking about like after that fight when he passes out underwater and then his son comes and drags him to the air pocket.
That was a really good scene.
And then he was like, basically Jake was like, no, I'm done. Like, this is it.
Yep.
Like, get out of here. Go do your thing. And
that was a very beautiful scene because I like that whole mantra that they established earlier in the movie with like that segment of the Way of Water, like what they kind of say to each other.
What is it? They say, the ocean is within you or whatever, blah, blah, blah.
I really like that whole sequence.
Yeah.
And just like, it's just nice writing there. The ocean is good. I like it. So, yeah, I'm just trying to think what else, like on just like the subject of like the new characters and whatnot. I don't really have a ton to say about them. I mean, I'm happy with the ones that are still around for like the new story. Mm-hmm. It'll be curious to see if they also introduce other new characters or if they're just going to stick with these ones and no more new people. I'll be also curious too if this general that's not really all that honestly imposing.
Are you talking about the woman that came in?
Yeah, like General Ardmore, I think is the character's name. I don't know. Like,
I think they were on the screen for like a total of a minute and a half or something.
They weren't there that long. Yeah, I mean, they were there more like during like that weird like Clockwork Orange scene where like they have like the spinning thing and like they have his eyeballs like jacked up for Spider. They're like, tell us where they're at.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll be curious to see what's going on with that character in the new one and just sort of if Stephen Lang is going to continue to be the big bad or if they're going to have him shift gears or maybe fade out. Maybe he'll just get killed finally and just be like actually dead.
I don't think so.
No, I
if they brought him back for the second one, so hammer-fisted, he's going to be in the rest of them, I bet. Unless like the only way I see him leaving is like if the actor dies.
Yeah, that's true. But I think they've already filmed, I think, almost all of Avatar 3. Like, at this point, they're just working on, like, the post-production of it.
Right.
Yeah. I want to talk about just Jake and Neytiri for a moment here, and then we'll go on to some other stuff here.
So, immediately, I have some thoughts. I think they made Neytiri, like, significantly more animalistic in this movie, and I think that was really weird.
You must certainly be talking about the scene where, like, shortly after her son dies, that she goes like rampage.
Even before that, I think.
Okay.
Like, I mean, that scene in particular is definitely comes to mind, but I think that part is because it was, I think it was supposed to be like seeing it from the point of view of Spider.
Mm-hmm.
because I mean he's human still, right?
Yep.
And he just sees, you know, Neytiri like take down like, I don't know, 12 dudes in a row, like, but like, I don't know, that scene is just really weird to me. Like I never saw Neytiri like that before.
Well,
you know what I mean?
You have to factor in, of course, the death of the son, because
sure.
she's way in a not stable place. So perhaps it's like, you know, the real primal side of her comes out in that moment. But I'm trying to think, like, I'm just trying to think back to you saying like her doing it like before that stuff too.
I'm trying
just
to remember,
think of,
but
like, a
maybe
scene
it's
that would
just
make sense.
maybe it's just that scene.
I don't know. Her character overall takes a backseat to things. I mean, we talked about that earlier, how like the kids and the new characters, you know, kind of come into play more too. I thought her character was fine. I think Jake certainly had more development done on him, you know, because he transitions from kind of being like the young, you know, trying to prove himself soldier to like a protective father, and like leader. So there's definitely a shift there. But like Neytiri, I mean, they had that nice scene like where they work in how like she's supposed to protect the people and she's conflicted with like leaving the forest people because like her dad giving her the bow. Like, okay, like I could buy that, but I don't think they, at least in this one, she didn't do not nearly as much, I feel like, as she did in the first one. That's just me. I mean, like, I think she had more to do in the first one than this one.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's just sort of, which is also weird because she didn't learn any of the stuff from the water tribe.
Actually, that's a good point. Because, yeah, you saw Jake, you know, he had to learn the kids.
He learned the warrior mount. The kids learned the Elu.
And the breathing.
And the breathing,
Yeah.
which Jake, I guess, didn't learn the breathing
Well,
thing.
if he did, they didn't really show it.
Yeah. And then Neytiri didn't learn anything, apparently. Because she rode on the...
Her, like, dragon thing.
yeah, there's a word. They said the name for it several times.
Well, the banshees.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Essentially.
I was thinking of the Navi word that they used for it. Like the swimming
Oh, the
one
swimming.
was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Elu, and then the flying one, I don't remember what they called it, but
I thought the flying one was really cool. Like, just the new sea creatures. I
oh,
really
you're talking about the war mount. I'm talking
Oh,
about
sorry, yeah, the
I'm
war
talking
mount,
about the
yeah.
Banshee, the name for
okay.
the Banshee that the Navi used instead of Banshee.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
I don't remember what it was, but yeah, because even in the final like battle sequence, she rode on that still on the Banshee.
Yep. She had some cool fight scenes. I mean, like
Yeah.
I did like the moment earlier on in the first act as well where, you know, she hears the voice of Courage, you know, and she's like, son of a bitch, like that guy is still alive. And she's like, David, I will kill you as many times as I need to. Like,
Yeah.
that was a horrible impression. But
I think that was spot on.
we'll just do like a side by side. Let's see how terrible it was. I'm trying to think. I think Jake, his character to me was probably the more, at least for the recurring characters that came back. I thought it was interesting. He's trying to be like a protective father. I mean, yeah, we have to factor in that like all these years have passed. He's no longer a human, so that, you know, he's not doing the going back in and out of the Avatar thing. So I thought seeing kind of how he adapted just to the Na'vi since being Taruk Makto was cool. I thought it was also neat too that like how they showed like the surrendering of the title of leadership for that moment, like, you know, like that like chest cutting scene.
Yep.
They're like a leader must fall for another to take place. I thought that was interesting, and then just like the role of being a parent. I'm sure real parents could actually speak to this better than a guy that doesn't have kids talking about it on a podcast. But I just thought interesting how your priorities change when you have a family, right? Or
Right.
at least like that's, I think, what it's supposed to kind of do. Like, you're not thinking about yourself as much, and he just wants to keep his family safe, but also is trying to fight off this horde of humans. So I thought that was interesting to see. And then also just how he kind of had his dynamic with his family take place, because he was, you know, very militaristic. Like, you know, they
Well, he
call him
wasn't.
like sir.
He wasn't before
No, he seemed to
the
become
conflict
more.
started.
Yeah, he became more that way because of everything, right?
Well, I mean, if you think about it from like the perspective of him, right? He's trying to fight a war, but his kids want to be a part of it, right? So it's like, I don't know, like going into a war, like, you know, it's a completely different thing. Like you can't, like, I think you would have to make that disconnect and be able to be like, this is more important than, you know,
Like I can't just treat the situation like, or I can't like talk to my family like they're in a normal situation.
Yeah.
Like they are in the situation.
yeah. And I mean, I think he had to be like, there's a scene where Neytiri is like, you're being too hard on them.
Yeah.
And
She's like, you're, like they're not a squad. Like they're a family.
yeah, but from his perspective, it's like,
They're a family squad.
yeah, I don't want them to, I don't want them to die is basically what he said.
Yeah. And I also like, I didn't actually think it was all that bad to just show kind of the qualities of strong leadership in a parent role. I'm not saying that like everybody needs to like run their kids like, you know, like, hey, like you disobey direct orders. Like you don't need to do that. But I did think it was nice to just see like the respect that they clearly had for their father.
Well, they had that respect because he demanded it.
Yes.
And
You don't, so you're saying...
I don't think that the relationship was that way before the conflict started with the humans.
Okay, yeah. Actually, yeah, you're making me think about that because during
all
that
this-
montage, they show him being kind of playful. You know, he's like taking like photos with the kids.
And
like,
I mean, they were younger, so
sure,
like
yeah.
maybe that's a part of it. But I don't think that the relationship was that way when the humans weren't around.
Actually, yeah, it's interesting to think about. Like, let's say the humans just never came back, and he's just allowed to live happily.
I mean, he
ever
wouldn't have
after.
treated them like that
He
because
probably would have been definitely less of a hard ass on
because
on that stuff.
because most of the, you know,
It's the
there's
circumstance.
yeah, exactly. Like if we suddenly found ourselves in, you know, a combat zone like that, I think that the way we viewed family and stuff would be significantly different. I know, like, from at least my point of view, if I had children, which I don't, obviously, well, I guess not obviously, nobody knows who I am, but
What if they're just like, what? You don't have kids?
yeah,
Of course,
but
he sounded like he was a dad.
I mean, if I was a dad and I found my family suddenly in a combat zone, like things would be, the rules would change drastically, like, because, you know, you don't know where the enemy is going to be. You don't know any of that.
There's like a constant state of readiness that has to be instilled.
Right. Or like when they were hitting the maglev or the train, right?
Yeah.
And they wanted to go down and get the weapons or whatever. It's like, it's not a game is basically what he was getting at when they got back from that, right? Like, you can die very easily in situations like that if you aren't careful, and they were not being careful.
It's true. Yeah, it just I'm just kind of processing this because it is like a totally. Because yeah, I'm just thinking if there wasn't like a threat like that, and you know they're not like in an active war zone basically situation, like the whole dynamic would be completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I could see is like if he were to be like a more stern father on that would be like, let's say, you know, and we have no proof of this because it's never expanded on in any of the movies. Like Jake Sully's dad, like beat the hell out of him as a kid and, you know, whipped him and like, you know, did like all this stuff. And he's like, oh, my dad did this to me. So now I'm doing this to my kids. Like,
well,
but
he
I
had
don't
the
think
Marine
there's-
background.
He had the Marine background, but it wouldn't be that even in the
Well, he didn't beat his kids. He treated them like they were soldiers.
No, I was just saying that like there would be no way to say that like Sully had like the hard upbringing to make him instill that on his kids.
Well, I think
militarily speaking, yeah, he has that
background,
that
which is
background
why
to know what it's like to be a cadet.
Well, that's why he treated his kids like soldiers because,
Yes.
you know, and at the end of the day, you know, as
He
a
served them.
I don't know like how high up in the Marines he got or whatever, but you know, if you get into a leadership position,
Yeah.
I mean, you have one of your responsibilities if you end up in a combat situation is getting your Joes out alive, right? So like I mean, it's even more so as a parent of the kids, leading them into combat. Like, I think he says several times in the movie that, like, the father's job is to protect or whatever, and that's what gives him meaning or something.
Yeah.
And, like, there were several points in the movie where he was failing at that because his kids weren't listening. Like, his youngest son would want to go off and adventure and do something,
Yep.
which then he failed at it, which then made him angry. And, you know, I think it's sort of the military thing. I don't know.
It could be. No, I mean, it's just, yeah, it's interesting to think about, like, just, like, the perspectives on, like, raising...
Because, like, if we
raise kids.
If we grew up in a war zone, you know, like, if
like Ukraine. Like,
right.
that.
If we were a kid living in Ukraine right now, like, our upbringing would change significantly over the last year, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I would certainly, thinking about it, even, you know, just logically, if I was in a war zone and if I have kids, I'm probably going to be 10 times more protective of them.
Right.
And
you're going to have to control what they can do and what they can't do because, you know, they go out somewhere.
They'll get in the harm's way.
Yeah. I mean,
like, likely speaking anyway.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I was curious, though, if you thought, and I'm sure, like, because I found this to be, like, just an interesting dilemma in the movie, is, like, Sully family is first for him. You know, I think that's clear. But then by the end of Avatar 2, he's clearly like, all right, man, like, it's war. Like, this is where we're going to stand, and now it's time to fight. Do you think, like, he should have maybe got to that conclusion sooner of, like, you know, like, they're not going away, dude. Like, you're going to have to fight them.
Right.
Like, do you think he could have arrived at that sooner, or did you not care or think that, like, it just made sense that after he loses his son that now he's, like, fully in the fight again?
Well, so I think for Sully it was sort of a conflict of, like, he fought off the humans, they left, he probably didn't think that they were going to come back, and then I think during this movie he's sort of starting to figure out, like, they're going to keep coming.
Yep. Like, they're not going to stop.
And they're, you know, they are billions, right? So, like, it's not going to, the conflict isn't going to end. It's going to be a constant. As long as Pandora is not under human control, there's going to be conflict.
Yep.
And, you know, it's going to be a time of war, basically, for the foreseeable future. And I think he was trying to be like, you know what, I don't want to deal with it. I have my family.
Yep.
I want to be able to live a normal life now.
Yeah. And I think it was, I mean, it made sense, at least initially, that, like, you could kind of buy the mindset of, okay, you wouldn't necessarily gonna go run in the harm's way right away. Like, well, it's not, like, implausible that he's like, let me try to maybe, like, I'm the target that has, you know, I'm the person that they're trying to kill. Maybe if I draw them away from everybody, they'll just kind of go away.
Well, they weren't, I think he was taking the approach of, like, as a person, I mean, imagine, you know, you join the military, you go fight your war, you win, you know, deal with all that, right? And then the war kicks up again, and you're sort of forced into a position of fighting it. But, you know, in the gap there, you had kids, you started a family. Like, you're into a different chapter of your life, and you want that chapter, and you want to finish it out, you know, but you get interrupted, and you're, like, trying to hold on to that chapter. I think is sort of like what he's doing, is he doesn't want to let go of the idea of being able to live a life with your family and just have a normal day-to-day life now, but he doesn't have a choice. And
I feel like that's actually visually represented too, now that you say that, in the scene towards the end where they lay their son to rest, and he kind of has like that last moment where he connects to like the underwater spirit tree,
Yep.
and sort of like sees his like boyhood and stuff, and you know, kind of knows. I felt like that was like his like kind of rationale of like this chapter, like you said, is come to a close, and like now we have to face what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about it like that. But
I think you know, he's sort of forced into, you know, being a war leader again.
You know, that's an interesting thing to think about too, where it's like I as a person, Kyler, like I'm pretty, if you can avoid a war, that's probably best. You know, like war generally to me is not great. But you know, even in like if we are putting it in the Avatar situation, it's like it's easier said than done, because if you have a completely dominating force that's just, you know, diplomacy's not on the table. Like I don't think the Na'vi can just be like, hey.
I mean, there was a point where it was.
Yes.
And the humans sort of ruined that.
They sure did.
If you go back a couple hundred years, maybe not even a couple hundred, you know, there was similar things happening on Earth, right? Well, not even, you know, 20 years ago or whatever. But, you know, some country has something that some other country wants, so they come up with a war to be able to go get whatever they want, right?
They actually have that moment, I remember, in the first movie where like he takes like the Na'vi textbooks. He's like, this is how it's done. When someone else is sitting on your shit, and you want it,
you come up with a reason to start a war, and there you go.
Yep.
And I mean, that's sort of like they had the opportunity in the first one to
diplomatically figure
out a way to get their unobtainium. It would have taken longer, sure, but you know, time is short, time is money.
Yep.
So, you know, war it was. Then they lost. They regrouped on Earth, and they're like, yeah, now we don't have a choice because our planet's gone, basically.
Yeah.
And so they, you know, were like, we're going to take Pandora then instead. Which I guess is the only reason they came back, at least according to what the woman general said, right?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't really like get obviously into specifics of like, she just says Earth is dying, but there's not like a follow-up of like why it's dying, how it's dying, what the resource.
Well, I mean, I think that came from, well, they weren't looking for a resource. They were looking for space. That's all they were looking for.
Yeah, because I suppose that's just more from like the extended cut, because Earth looks super crowded.
Yeah.
And in that first one.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that makes sense. I still wonder what the hell they're going to do with the whale goop. What are they going to do with that?
I don't think it's going to be
It's just nothing. Just
I think it was just a plot device, and I don't think it'll come up again.
Yeah.
Same thing with the unobtainium. It
what
was a huge thing in the first movie, and then the second movie they were like, yeah, instead of unobtainium, we get this goop from the whale brain.
I feel like they gave it a name. I feel like
they called it something.
I'm calling it whale goop.
They called it something once. It started with like an A.
I did.
Maybe.
You know, I will say this. Now, let's just say whale goop is a complete plot device, and it's just kind of a throwaway scene to just justify them being there, right? That's
not why they were there.
The
whale goop wasn't why they were there. They were using the whale goop to fund building the things.
Right. But I want to go with that scene quick and say that there was something in there that I did appreciate. Okay. The whale goop aside, I did like that after all that trouble, Spider kind of rightfully points out, you're just going to like waste the rest. Like, what the hell are you like? You're going to do all that for this and just kind of pitch the rest of this thing.
Yep.
I felt like that was a pretty clear message, and certainly commentary of the wasteful nature of people. Of like, you just want to kind of not even worry about the cleanup of the rest of this.
We're consumers.
Make a big mess.
We're consumers.
You know, I feel like I'm a consumer.
Yeah.
You are too.
Yep.
Are we helping the problem?
No.
I mean, we're talking about it here.
I don't think that...
I'm not going to hunt whales.
I don't think the problem... Again, I think I said something similar in the first podcast, but I don't think the problem starts with individuals.
Too many people?
Well, corporations.
Yes.
the corporations strive to feed the individual, but if the corporations, the corporations can change what they're doing to, we might make things a little bit more expensive or whatever, and they're trying to do that with, I don't know, they have organic stuff now, so they're not, I guess I don't know what goes on in organic stuff. I just buy whatever. I'm a human garbage disposal, basically. And, maybe I can consume more responsibly, but like they don't use like as many fertilizers and pesticides, I think, for organic foods, which then results in, less insects and stuff dying from like bees. There's, a bunch of fertilizers and insecticides that also affect bees, but we want bees. Bees are good.
I'm afraid of them.
Why?
But they are, I mean, they're good, but I'm afraid of them. Yeah.
Why?
They're kind of scary. Like, I've never been stung by one, and like there's a fear of being stung by them, and I have like a weird thing with like creatures getting in my personal space. I probably got to get over that because I'm at the age where a grown man should probably not be afraid of a bee.
Yeah.
But I also want to clarify too, just on the subject of my own fear, and I'm addressing it to you, everybody. It's not just like a bee. Like usually, like if it was like a bumblebee, I probably will not freak out. Like I will see it and be like, "Oh, that is a bumblebee," and it's there. But like if it's like a hornet or a wasp, like,
just leave it alone.
Yeah, but like I get weird. Like if I go into what I consider to be like its proximity, I feel like it's just gonna like.
What is its proximity?
I don't know, a few feet. Like like it's like on the wall and like I have to
90% of the time. Insects like that are not gonna hunt you out. Like the only ones that will are like mosquitoes and ticks, maybe. I will completely acknowledge that my fear of this is not based on rational thinking. Like this is they would
is
not
clearly
benefit
not
from
logical.
being close to you.
I don't think they would.
No,
but it's definitely just something in my head, and I probably got to get over it one day. But if you ever like are around me and there's a bee around, you'll probably have a good laugh because my reaction.
Getting to scream like a little girl.
I've been told it's comical. Like I make a production. I make a loud noise. Flee. Where were we at? Because we were talking about something else before.
We were talking about
bee fear.
Consumerism.
Yeah.
On Earth, and I mean that's sort of what led to Earth dying, as they say.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of a parallel.
It's
sort of a parallel with real life. Although,
do you think Cameron ever, like, whether it's the first one or second one or any of these sequels, we know that he has messages of, clear, protect the environment, nurture it, respect it. Like, that's apparent, right?
Yeah.
But I also wonder if there is messages that are maybe not as loud as the others that have to deal with, like, living with less. Like, maybe he would prefer people to...
I'm
be
sure
comfortable having far less in their lives.
I mean, that's sort of
more.
what Jake did, right? He went from, well, not quite, I guess, because
I don't think he had a ton to begin with, but I mean, he certainly made his life more simplistic by living the way of the Na'vi versus how the humans in that movie are all depicted living, basically just consuming, and not really doing anything for the land.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope for like this new movie, like people that watch it, like the ocean, like there's clear ocean conservation messages, just like in the first one, kind of saving the forest and stuff like that. I hope people get those messages. Some of it's pretty, on the nose. Some of the messaging I think is subtle, but either way, I still think it's effective. Like I found the messages in this movie to be effective, like just the things that correlated back to reality.
I mean, I think I mentioned this in the first podcast too, that I don't really I usually don't read into things in movies a whole lot, but like thinking back on the movie, I can see a lot of the messages. Like, I don't know, I feel like there wouldn't be a single person who would watch, when they were hunting the Tukun and we're like, yeah, this is great that they're doing this. Like, I don't think there's a single person that would look at that
maybe, like,
situation and be like, yeah, I fully support what they're doing here. Like, no, I don't think anyone in their right mind would
You
say
know
that.
what, though? There's probably that one person that's does it for a living. Like, they hunt fish, and they're like, I'm a third-generation whale killer, and
Well,
this is
yeah,
good.
but
They like it.
I don't think even that they enjoy doing it.
I would hope not. They're like the scientists. They're like, I gotta drink myself to death every night because of killing the whales.
We say that, but I don't know.
I don't know.
I think there's also doing it in the manner that they were doing it and using what they were using from it. Because I think even the whales that are hunted now, I think they use most of it. I mean, from my perspective, that's what I would assume. There's a good chance that I am grossly incompetent and ignorant, I guess would be the right name or word.
I'll say this. I don't think you're incompetent, but also like
I think I'm ignorant to the situation.
Certainly ignorance on both our parts on this particular subject, I would say. And also, I just frankly have not done the research myself to know about how devastating probably illegal whale hunting is. Which I would assume most of that stuff is illegal, but it still probably happens anyway.
But I guess I was like going and thinking about, people who hunt deer and or pheasant or whatever, and it's like I mean, most people that do that, I think, have a large amount of respect for wildlife. And while they are ending something's life, I think that they have a respect for wildlife. They have to buy their tags and they have to do, all these things, but all that money goes back into conservation, like your fishing licenses and all that. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, that goes to the Iowa DNR or,
I didn't know that.
So like they help fund conservation stuff.
Interesting.
And, if people didn't hunt deer, there'd be, a massive overpopulation.
Yeah.
If people didn't, but I think with this sort of thing, it's a different situation where like they are, because I think most hunters do not do what they did in that, where they, take one thing and then leave the rest. I think that, I don't know.
Well, and it also seems like, at least for that whale, the first one that they go after, I feel like the hunters that you're kind of describing, like in the real world, the ones that are conscious of like, what their hunting does to the environment and everything like that. I also feel like they're usually respectful about how they're executing the animal, meaning like they don't want it to suffer.
Right.
Like they want to do
like,
it
you don't
as
want to
ethically as possible.
Correct. Like you don't want to take a shot on a deer if you're not confident that you're going to take it down.
Yeah. Whereas I would say these people could care less about how violently they take the whale down. Like, I think they're fine with shooting as many harpoons in it as possible.
Like
and just hoping that it stops moving.
The Aussie, with the harpoon, he did not have a respect for them at all.
Seemed like a good guy.
I mean, he's probably an okay dude, but he does not have any, like, there is no, like, I don't feel bad about this at all. Like, he did not care.
He must just be like, he strikes me as like one of those people, the nondescript Australian guy that I don't even think he has a character name. If he does, if he does, I missed it.
It is not important.
Well, he struck me as like one of those guys where it's like he's always like just wakes up in the morning in a bad mood, doesn't even want to do his job, but likes the money and just kind of is doing what he wants to do, but just is like kind of a dick to everybody around him. Like that's the vibe I got. I wouldn't want to work with a guy like that. I also just don't want to hunt whales.
I would not do that.
No. Final thoughts that you got on Avatar: The Way of Water before we shut this thing down?
I recommend it.
Well, I guess, was it worth the... I don't want to say was it worth the wait, because it's not a matter of that, but like, would you say that...
I mean, I've seen it 3 times, so...
Right, but like, for how long you waited, I mean, like, do you think it gave you... I mean, obviously, like, enough. I mean, you're a fan of the movie, but like, were you wanting anything more aside from just some of those plot things that you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, the only negatives I think I really saw were, you know, questions I had with the plot. Like, it always, like, sort of like lazy writing stuff always seems to like pop out at me. Like, the fact that there wasn't anything in the first that hinted at a second, like, everything that happened in the second movie, like,
Right.
was all started in the second movie. Like, every plot device to drive the plot of the second movie happened in the second movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
so you would have essentially just kind of gone... I know you touched on this before. Like, you would have liked to have seen just a bit more direct carryover of stuff from the first one to like continue.
Because the first movie, 0 questions at the end of the movie. There was no...
Yeah, I mean, it felt very complete at the end.
There was no, you know...
Yeah.
No question, no cliffhanger, no anything. No. The main reason I was looking forward to a sequel is the visuals. Like,
sure,
you know, and I don't know. I think that if they, I guess, you never know. I guess is the.
I'm overall very happy with the movie.
I think it's a great movie.
Yeah, I've seen it twice in theaters. You've seen it 3 times in theaters. I'll definitely buy it when it comes out, because I'm sure on 4K or eventually, who knows, 8K, if I ever upgrade to these things, like, it'll look stunning on a home theater. I know that.
Almost certainly.
So I felt like it was worth it for that, and I'm also just happy to be back in the world of Pandora, because I really like the world of the movie.
So something I read between the last podcast and this recording is apparently there's been like communities of people that felt depressed after seeing the first movie.
I did see that.
And I was
like a seasonal affective disorder. Like,
but
they get so used to Pandora, they're like, now I'm not in Pandora.
Yeah,
it's sad. What did you think about that?
I mean, I thought it was kind of goofy, but
I'm like, I know Avatar is like definitely like the benchmark when it comes to pure escapist filmmaking. Like, it's like that. So far removes you from anything resembling reality. I mean, I get that, but that's also like, I don't know. I mean, I know Avatar's unique in some senses, but there's been other science fiction movies that are like really pretty, or
I mean, I thought it was sort of goofy.
I mean, I think it's goofy. I agree with you. It's goofy. I definitely. I'll say this: the first time I saw it, it was a wintry mix of a kind of crappy weather out. And I admit, when I got out, I was like, oh man, like, you know, it kind of stinks to, I wish I could be in the warm waters of Pandora. That looks like a nice swim, but I definitely didn't get depressed and get sad about it.
I don't think,
no movie I guess I've yet to see has that kind of power.
I don't know. Did you see Marley and Me?
Yeah, I actually like that
sad
movie. You know, let me hang on. Okay, I know I gotta end this podcast here in a second, but
how long have we been going here?
How long have we been going?
Well, the timer says hour and 40, but there's probably been a few things cut.
Yeah, there's gonna be some cuts.
So
made
probably closer to an hour and a half, I bet.
On the subject of Marley and Me, just really quick. I actually have seen that movie a couple of times. I just think overall it's a pretty good movie. But when someone like always says like, "Oh my god, it's so sad,"
I only saw it once.
God, it's a lot. Some people did.
It's just a dog died. That's
the dog.
Sad.
The dog dies, but I want to say this for the minority of people that have this opinion, because I feel like this could be considered a controversial opinion on this movie.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So here we go. I didn't find the ending sad to like the extent of like the dog died. Like, yes, I felt very sad like when it happens in the movie. Like, it was a pretty overall well done emotional scene.
Yeah.
But I don't say completely sad because the dog lives a completely full life. It is loved. It is well
that's
tended
totally
to.
fair.
And it sort of shows like the circle of life that kind of happens with the life of a pet and how much impact it can have. And I would largely argue that after the dog dies, it's ending still on a high note, showing how much good that dog did for the family. So can I really say that the ending is like, oh, it's so sad? It's like, it'd be sad if like the dog died at like age 2 and it was like, but like it lived the full life.
Yeah. This.
Am I heartless for
No.
this? I don't know. I had to get that out there.
Anyway.
I've never openly talked about that before, so you just kind of got me on a subject.
Got it off your chest? You feel better?
I do. Yeah, it's good. It's out there. People know what I think about Marley and me.
Anyway, Avatar: The Way of Water. I recommend you go see
still.
it. Yeah,
I think
probably
it'll
will be
theaters
for a while.
Yeah, definitely a good while. And thankfully, we're not going to have to wait another like decade for the sequel. It'll come out in December of 2024, so we'll be fine.
Yeah, go see it. Recommend 3D if you're a fan of 3D.
I've only seen it in 3D, I guess, so I don't know what the normal one looks like. I'm sure it still looks great, but
I'm sure.
But the 3D is good. I don't really have anything else to say about this, but I will say, Kyler, thanks for being here.
No problem.
How is this compared to the first one? That's
less nervous.
Less nervous?
I think this one was probably better than the first one.
I mean, the first time's always like, you never know. But I thought you did good. We had some fun conversation talking about some stuff. I'm sure listening to the playback, I'll be like, what the hell? But
yeah.
Anyways, thank you for coming back. You're welcome to be back any other time. We'll
probably in 2 years.
2 years? I was going to say, you'll just be my sole Avatar guy.
Yeah, the one Avatar guy, yeah.
Oh, Jesus. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch everybody in the next episode. And if I haven't said it already, because I can't remember if I said it in the last episode I recorded, happy official New Year, and hope things work out well for you and anybody that you care about this year. Take care. Goodbye.